Welcome to Church of the Beatitudes online. What's going to happen over the next 45-50 minutes has typically been described with one word: worship. The idea is that there is a deity that is out there, but yet somehow in here, that we are praising, that we're acknowledging, that we are showing thanks to. As a kid growing up, I often thought about, I imagine God on a Sunday morning, all throughout the world, and then on other days, but let's just choose Sunday morning for now, people are worshiping. How does God pay attention to all that? And then this week, as I was preparing this sermon, it made me rethink what it means and what it is that we're doing for this 45-50 minutes. And then I realized that if I can somewhat change my view of God, change my view of humanity, maybe even change my view of the world, then what's happening right now also changes. And maybe the main purpose of our gathering is a sense of awareness, a sense of mindfulness, so that the songs you hear, the words you hear, the images that you see, they are all geared to make you aware and mindful. And maybe that is where the power lies. So try that. As you experience what is going to follow, truly be mindful and aware of everything that you're seeing externally, but also what you're experiencing internally. And maybe that is what we ought to call worship.
What is Advent? We wonder. On its surface, it is the wind flight chiming of church bells in a hymn-bright corner of the village square. The magnificence of incense lingering in the Christ song passages of memory. The Beatitudes of silence, lilting in the moon drift of midnight. The wisdom of Psalms, the sanctity of angels, the expectation of our God in the frost-frigid hour of a generative dawn. at its core is the mystery we call hope. Swept along on a sea of sacred words, a kaleidoscope of visions, a mystical canticle at the center of our beings. For hope fulfills at the moment of our deepest need the promise of peace and joy and love.
Longing for light, we wait in darkness. Longing for truth, we turn to you. Make us your own, your holy people. Light for the world to see. Christ be our light, shine in our hearts, shine through the darkness. Christ be our light, shine in your church, gathered today.
Longing for peace, our world is troubled. Longing for hope, many despair. Your word alone has power to save us, make us your living voice.
Christ be our light, shine in our hearts, shine through the darkness. Christ be our light, shine in your church, gathered today. Many the gifts, many the people, many the hearts that yearn to belong. Let us be servants to one another, making your kingdom come. Christ be our light, shine in our hearts, shine through the darkness. Christ be our light, shine in your church, gathered today.
Peace. We prepare for a new era of justice and reconciliation, free from violence and coercion, for we believe peace is possible. Therefore, we give thanks for those who witness for a world made whole, with all her people one. We light the candles for peace and hope.
I have traveled many moonless nights, cold and weary, with a babe inside, and I wonder what I've done. Holy Father, you have come and chosen me now to carry your Son. strong. Help me be. Help me. Breath of heaven, hold me together. Be forever near me. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven, lighten my darkness. Pour over me your holiness, for you are holy. Breath of heaven, hold me together. Be forever near me. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven, lighten my darkness. Pour over me your holiness, for you are holy. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven.
Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Revelations 21:1. That I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there is no longer any sea.
You and two of your friends have gone to an amusement park. Now, 3 people at an amusement park can be quite challenging, especially when it comes to getting on the rides. A lot of the rides are just for 2 people, so there will always be an odd one out. Now, the advantage of being the odd one out is there's a thing called the single line. And if you go into the single line, you probably can get through faster. The disadvantage is you're always riding with someone that you don't know, or you're riding by yourself. So imagine that you and your 3 friends are at the amusement park, and you would just assume that you would each take turns going as 2 and the other by themselves. But after 2 or 3 rides, it becomes apparent to you that these other 2 friends, they're never going to let you ride with them. They're always going to be riding together. You are the odd one out. Over the last few months, I've considered 3 entities, and have considered the possibility that there's an odd one out amongst them. The 3 entities that I've considered are God, humanity, and our galaxy, our Earth, all forms of life. Of these 3, it appears to me that within Christianity, we have consistently relegated the world as the odd one out. When you think about the core of Christianity, the core of Christianity is this hope that God will come back and redeem humanity. During Christmas season, we especially focus on that. We call it Advent hope. And in the Christian tradition, during this period of time, we go back and we look at all these Old Testament texts, and we use them to say that these individuals had this hope for a coming Messiah. And what would the Messiah do? The Messiah, for the most part, is seen as restoring the people. Now, there occasionally in the prophets, you'll see little glimpses that somehow the earth is involved in this, that the earth too will be redeemed. But we don't spend a lot of attention on those texts. Instead, we want to focus upon our hope, just as their hope is on this coming, which will bring about a redemption between God and the people. So Advent is not only looking forward to the coming of Jesus, but Advent also for many Christians is a looking forward to a second coming of Jesus. That's why in Matthew chapter 1, Jesus is called that name because he is the one who will save his people from their sins. Then what happens? Well, we're waiting. For 2,000 years, Christianity has been waiting for this climax moment when Jesus will come back into our world and restore us. But here's the good news for many Christians. You don't have to wait till then, because if you die now, you get to go to heaven immediately. And again, who's the odd one out? The earth. So when we die, we leave the earth, we go to this heaven, or we wait for this second coming of Jesus, and then we're caught up into the heavens, and the world again is the odd one out. And there's a great deal of enthusiasm and excitement centered around this kind of hope. Listen to this song. And as you listen to this song, not only hear the words that there is this home far away, but listen and watch the enthusiasm of those who are singing the song. Listen to the beat of the music. There is going to be this great reunion, but there will be an odd one out. Do you get it? Do you see how that has become so prominent for us? So in my mind, I imagined, and I'm using this illustration metaphorically. Please don't take this literally. But I imagine in my mind that if I was the odd one out with those other two at the amusement park, I get tired of it. So I imagine in my mind, God, humanity, and the earth finally gets tired of it all and says, I'm done. And so the earth says, look, let's see what we might be able to do here. 2020 rolls around. And the earth says, maybe I'll let loose a small little virus, get their attention. But it's not a small virus. It's a virus that humanity has no idea. It's all brand new to them. It's a virus that they hope to control like they try to control all of nature, but it can't be easily controlled. 1.5 million people die. 275,000 people dead here in the United States. And the virus continues to win. I wonder if the earth is saying, have I got your attention yet? And then I think about the environment, always being the odd one out, always being seen as a resource, something that can be used, something that can be tapped into, something that humans continue to use for their benefit, their desires, their wealth. And I wonder if the earth says, enough. Tired of being the odd one out. We're just going to let the circumstances play out. The last 10 years was the hottest decade that has been recorded. Here in Arizona, in Phoenix, we set records. If I remember correctly, this possibly was the hottest summer on record. Floods, droughts. It's almost as if the environment is saying to us, hello, You can't ignore me anymore. And you know what's really frustrating about all of this? Is the children in our midst right now. You might have children, you might have grandchildren that are growing up in the midst of 2020. COVID-19, the climate change that we are experiencing is having a dramatic impact upon their life. It will change. It will change their perspective of the future. No wonder more and more young people are saying, why have children? Why would I bring children into this environment? Science says there's very little hope. We might be able to slow things down, but ultimately, what do we have to face? Devastation, annihilation. What are we left with? If you accept the idea that the earth is a vital part of who we are, then the question we have to ask ourselves is, where is our hope, not only for us individually? Then I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm middle-aged. Everything that they're talking about, real good possibility I'll be dead by the time those things start to happen. Some of you might even be older than I am. So what do you care, right? But think about the children. Think about what hope, what responsibility do we have to offer them? For those of you who are members here at Beatitudes Church, what hope do we have to offer? Is it more than just saying, drive electric cars, use less plastic, don't use straws? Is it more than that we have to offer? Because other people can offer that, right? What do we have to offer? What is it that Church of the Beatitudes can offer that is in our wheelhouse, that will give our young people and those throughout our world a sense of hope? I think it's a shift in our view of two things. A shift in our view of God, and a shift in our view of how human beings relate to the earth. If we could change those ways of thinking, perhaps that would give us this sense of hope. And rather than the earth always being the odd one out, maybe we would find the true trilogy of God, humanity, and our world. Now, for strict theists, they have a concept of God that ties in perfectly with the idea of leaving the earth as the odd one out. One writer said the following: the strict theism of modern times banished God into the mystery of transcendence. God was seen as being out there. God was thought of as worldless, so that the world became godless. And the world could be dominated, and so that men and women could live in it without God. That's a strict view of theism. But that view has put us in the situation that we're currently in. So how do we get around it? One possibility is shifting our view of God by understanding what evolutionary biology teaches us. Now that can sound pretty intimidating, evolutionary biology. But it's not that hard. It is simpler than it sounds, and it's fascinating. Jürgen Moltmann wrote the following about evolutionary biology and the earth and humanity and God. And he says the following: according to what evolutionary biology tells us, it may be said that only a small part of the potential diversity of life forms has been realized. One more time, ready? It is possible that only a small part of the potential diversity of life forms has been realized. The forms of life which are possible cannot be envisioned. Do you see it? Instead of seeing the earth as this is it, evolutionary biology tells us that there are life forms that, and we have not even experienced, that are still possible. He continues when he says, in a nature open to the future, even natural laws are not timeless. They are changeable habits of nature. The picture that we get here is that everything is in flux. Everything's changing. Everything's moving. So how does that tie into God? Instead of seeing God as transcendent, instead of seeing God as out there and in here somehow, that kind of jumble, perhaps if we saw God as the force field of energy or the field of consciousness, which provides that which is needed for the evolutionary process itself. So God is not out there. God is within nature, and nature is within God. And when we shift that perspective, then we see everything around us. We see the earth. We see our galaxy. We see the universe as being sacred. You can't separate them. On the way here this morning, as I was driving, I thought, how hard is that to do here in the city? I mean, if I'm in Sedona, that's great, right? I can look at all these rocks and everything and the beauty of nature. But in the city of Phoenix? And then I saw this individual walking, and a thought popped in my mind: the sacred. I saw this tree which probably would have loved to have been planted out somewhere in nature, in the midst of this city. And I thought to myself, the sacred. This is a shift of seeing God. Instead of seeing God purely as theistic, as this being something, it sees God as energy or consciousness that dwells within all life, within all of nature, and is that which drives it. It provides that which is needed to sustain it and to allow the evolutionary process to continue. Can you imagine teaching young children that? But that's not the only possibility as far as shifting our view. It's not only God, but it's shifting our understanding of ourselves and how we relate to the earth. Given the context of what we are currently experiencing, I wonder what would happen if we looked back at Genesis chapter 1 and we didn't read it literally. We wouldn't read it in the way maybe the original writer intended, but instead we read it from our perspective as a metaphor of what we're experiencing. And I thought about that. And I realized in reading Genesis 1, human beings are created last. Last. Everything else is created, and then it's almost like, oh, and there's humanity. Now, For a long time, we always saw it as being the crowning jewel. But instead, perhaps we could flip it and see that the only way human beings could exist was because they were dependent upon everything else that came before. Instead of seeing humanity as the center of the world, the center of our universe, it shows humanity as being dependent upon all of that. And when that sense of dependency comes about, we realize that we need to be very careful, that we need to be appreciative. And that leads to a sense of humility, what you might call cosmic humility. When you think about our universe, you, and I know I'm not supposed to point my finger, right? But I am, you and I. We're a blip. A blip. And yet we pray to God as if everything revolves around us. Our hopes are all based upon us. How we treat the world, how we treat each other, always based upon us. But if we can shift our perspective and realize that we are dependent upon the world, the reality is, folks, the earth can exist without us. We cannot exist without the earth. One writer said the following: if humans are to survive, they must integrate themselves into nature and into the community of their fellow beings. They are not entitled. They are not entitled to the arrogance of power over nature and the liberty, the freedom to do whatever they like. If you take those two ideas, a different way of seeing God and a different way in which humans are related to the universe, to our galaxy, to our earth, to each other, to all forms of life, I think that creates a significant sense of hope. Try teaching this to your children. Try teaching this to your grandchildren. Give them a sense of hope for life. Instead of all the doom and gloom, we have the possibility of sharing a different way of looking, a different way of seeing. But this isn't new. The ancients understood this. The ancients that we often see as kind of being backwards, ignorant. There was an individual by the name of Ben Sirach. Lived about 150, 200 years before Jesus was here on this earth. And he wrote a book, it's called Sirach. It's a book of Jewish wisdom. One of the verses, it says the following: great labor is created for all humans, and a heavy yoke is upon the children of Adam. From the day of their coming out of their mother's womb until the day of their burial into the mother of all. Do you hear it? Do you hear it? Not only do you have your mother, biological mother, the text says, when you are born into this world, but don't forget that at your death, you will return to the mother of all. Think about that. Think about sharing that with our children. That the earth is our mother. I don't know about you, but if I had treated my mother as some kind of a resource that I could use, I think she would have knocked me on my head. But if I see my mother as a gift of life, we see God and the earth as that which gives us and sustains our very being. It'll affect how we deal and interact with each other and with it. Church of the Beatitudes, for the last 4 years, we've been saying that the Church of the Beatitude is about making love real. I owe you an apology. Up until this time, that's my way of thinking about that, is making love real for other human beings. I was too narrow. I need to broaden that. So this week, when you go out, your hope and the hope of our children is making love real for our earth. Now that is Advent hope. Amen. Giving this shift of an idea of perceiving God and perceiving our human relationship with the earth, I wonder how that affects our idea of prayer. One individual I stumbled upon in his book talked about prayer, and in the context of humanity in the larger realm of our universe. And he said the following. He said, "Fancy that, asking in the interest of a few feeble primates on one small planet that the Lord of the universe give special service to their preconceived and possibly misguided wishes." I first read that and I thought about sharing that, and I thought there would be some people that would say, blasphemy. Well, possibly. But if I shift my way of looking at God and our interaction with God in the world, maybe our idea of prayer begins to also shift. And prayer becomes something that maybe we don't always do with our eyes closed, but with our eyes open. It's something that is more than just listening to the voice of another human being, but it's listening to everything that is around us. So for our prayer this week, we're going to do something different. And it may not be for all of you. I understand that. But instead of praying out loud, and instead of doing prayer right now, I would ask that you set aside a moment of prayer. And perhaps that expression of prayer is found by being outside and focusing upon something and allowing yourself to truly see it. And that's going to take time. Perhaps your prayer this day will be listening to someone, to listening to more than just words, but to listening to what their tone of voice, their inflections is truly communicating to you. Perhaps these are ways of prayer that we are yet to explore. So please, in whatever way, today, have a time of prayer.
A baby, such a tiny little baby. We see God's love overflow. Such a beautiful promise. New hope for a family to grow. And this hope will unveil a new meaning, a new feeling in all that we do. For this child has come, bringing joy and love, a new gift, a new life breaking through.
Child of promise, child of hope, our hearts have been touched by your love. Our lives are made new through this hope found in you, child of promise, child of hope. A father, such a kind and loving father. We see God's grace overflow. A Savior, such a beautiful Savior. New hope for his children to know. As he was from the very beginning, he is now and forever will be our eternal hope, our eternal joy. Lord of love, Lord of life, Prince of peace, child of promise, child of hope. Oh, our hearts have been touched by your love. Our lives are made new through this hope found in you, child of promise, child of hope.
Thank you for being a part of Church of the Beatitudes online. As you go into this week, I want to offer you a blessing that ties back into everything we've been looking at today. And so, first of all, may you be blessed with a sense of serenity. Serenity to accept yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, those areas that you are proud of, and those areas in your life perhaps you feel shame. And may you have a sense of serenity that truly you are just a small piece in this larger universe, but you still matter, and you are still loved. And may you have a sense of knowing that you are also blessed with courage. Courage to make a difference. As small and minute as we may feel at times in the larger realm of our universe, we can make a difference. We just have to have the wisdom to know what it is that we can change, and then have the courage to bring about that change. And then may you be blessed with love, a spirit of love that resides within you and surrounds you and is within everyone that you see. So as you go out this week, make love real, not only for another person, but also for our earth, for all forms of life, because that is truly living, and that's truly making love real.
It came upon the midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to all, great news of joy we bring. The earth in solemn stillness lays to hear the angels sing.
And you beneath life's crushing load, whose forms are bending low, who toil along the climbing way with painful steps and slow.
Look now, for glad and golden hours come swiftly on the wing, and all the world send back the song which now the angels sing.
For lo, the days are hastening on, by prophet words foretold, when with the ever-circling years comes round the age of gold, when peace shall over all the earth its ancient splendors fling, and all the world send back the song which now the angels sing.
Hey, gang! We're so glad you joined us today for the second Sunday in Advent and the beginning of our Beatitudes holiday festivities. All month long, we've got plenty of opportunities for you to connect and make a difference. So, grab a pen and paper because we've got a lot to cover. First, ballots are in the mail for our congregational vote to approve the 2021 budget and slate of officers for the Board of Directors. Members, you have choices for sending in your vote. First, you could fill out both sides of the ballot and return it in the enclosed envelope that you get. Or the second thing you can do is call in your vote to the phone number that is on your screen. Be sure to leave your name and whether or not you approve in your message. And third, starting next week, you can visit the member portal of our website and vote online, if you have a login, that is. You have until December 24th. Secondly, don't forget to send your monetary gifts to the 4 deserving families at Maryland School that I spoke about last week. Faith in Action is asking you for monetary donations only to purchase clothing, books, toys, and gift cards for groceries. Kathy Kim, along with several other Christmas shoppers, will be purchasing and wrapping the items to give to the families in time for Christmas. Your support will be greatly appreciated. Send your donation checks to the church with the notation Maryland School by this Thursday, December 10th. It's coming right up. Do you knit or crochet? Beatitudes Faith in Action is partnering with Bethel Temple, just down the road, in January to collect knitted and crocheted scarves, hats, and lap blankets to distribute to persons who are houseless. On MLK Day, January 18th, is when the donations can be dropped off. Watch my e-news for further details on how to drop off your donations. Last Sunday morning, Pastor Tony and myself live streamed a podcast for the first Sunday of Advent. Today, we will be continuing our Christmas conversations about the birth of Jesus at 10:15, and we'll take a closer look at the narrative of Jesus' life as told in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. I emailed all the links to you on Friday for you to watch. I want to encourage you to tune in again this morning and join in the live conversation from home. You can send us your questions and comments either on Facebook Live, in the chat box, or now you can even text them to us using your cell phone to our podcast number on the screen. It's 480-389-4974. Boy, this month is jam-packed. I told you to have a pad of paper. Next, I invite you to watch and join our new live broadcast, the Beatitudes Holiday Boost, every Wednesday night in December at 7 o'clock. This is a half hour of holiday music and sing-alongs led by our music director, Stephen Schormitzler and friends. And Beatitudes families, don't miss Wednesday the 23rd for a very special guest. Ho, ho, ho. Then, on December 21st at 7 p.m. is a live broadcast of The Longest Night worship service, and it's designed for those who are grappling with loss and grief during this season, and they're just looking to restore hope and feel the joy and the light of the holidays. And don't forget, this is a great month to connect on Zoom. We have several gatherings throughout the week for you to choose from, with holiday reflections and some surprises. Today at 9 o'clock is Ruminate, and we will be discussing God don't ride no reindeer. So what does he ride? Jump in to find out. And then our children and youth enrichment on Zoom for Advent starts this Sunday, today, with both groups meeting. The children 1st through 6th at 4 o'clock, and the youth 7th through high school at 7. Invite all your friends and join in the Advent fun. And then on Tuesday, back by popular demand, and a Hail Mary, is our Beatitudes Football Forum on Zoom on Tuesdays at 6 o'clock. Football charity pool participants can jump in again to give us your week's pick. And then on Wednesday at 6 o'clock is Beatitudes Boost. This is our digital midweek social hour. But this Wednesday will be a little different because we are going to decorate your hot dog contest. Prepare and dress up your dog using only edible decorations for the holidays. And then we're all going to vote and pick the wiener. If you want links, go to Beatitudes Media at beatitudeschurch.org. And I've saved the biggest announcement for last. Our Christmas Eve services will be live streamed this year on December 24th. Our first service is at 5 o'clock for our families, and the second is our classic service at 8 o'clock. We want to remain COVID safe and would love to have you watch safely from your home as we celebrate Christmas in a most unique way online. You'll enjoy holiday music, reflections, and see the lighting of the Great West Window. Don't miss it. I will be sending links later this month, so watch your email inbox. I hope you had a pad of paper to take down all these ideas. If not, hit rewind, and it will always be there for you. Come back next Sunday as our Advent worship series on hope continues. Until then, be well. Mask up, and we will see you next Sunday. Bye, gang.